The days after Charlie's warning passed in a blur. The unsettling feeling that had settled in me after the parrot's eerie screech didn't dissipate. If anything, it only grew stronger. I kept replaying the events in my mind. The sound of Charlie mimicking my father's voice, the warning about the intruder, and the silence that followed. It didn't make sense. No one was there, and the police found no evidence of a break-in. But what did it mean? What had Charlie been reacting to? Still, I tried to move on with my life, trying to push aside the questions that kept gnawing at me. But then, something happened that made everything feel even more uncertain. One evening, a few weeks later, I found myself home alone, sitting in the living room. It was late, about 11 p.m., and the house was quiet, almost unnervingly so. I was watching TV, but I wasn't really paying attention to it. My mind kept drifting back to Charlie, to that eerie night when the parrot seemed to sense something I couldn't. My thoughts were interrupted by a sound from the hallway. It was the voice of my brother. "Hey, are you okay?" His voice, clear and familiar, rang out from the dark corridor outside the living room. I was stunned. My brother didn't live with me, and he hadn't called or texted to say he was coming over. The voice sounded so real, so unmistakably his. I could even hear the concern in his tone, the way he always asked if I was okay whenever he knew something was off. Confused but relieved that he might be checking in on me, I responded without thinking. "Yeah, I'm fine," I called out, expecting to see him come around the corner. But when I stood up and walked toward the hallway, there was no one there. The search. I stood frozen for a second, unsure of what I had just heard. Was I imagining things? Had I really just heard my brother's voice? I called out into the empty house, but there was no response. My heart started to beat faster. I stepped into the hallway and looked around, calling his name, but the house was as silent as it had been before. I quickly moved through every room, checking every corner. No one was there. No sign of my brother. No sign of anything. The house was completely empty. I ran outside, hoping to catch a glimpse of him walking toward the driveway or waiting outside. But the night was still, and there was nothing. I called his phone. "Hey man, where are you? I thought I heard you. Are you here?" I asked, trying to hide the edge of panic creeping into my voice. There was a slight pause on the other end, and then he answered, sounding slightly confused. "I'm at home. What's going on? Why are you calling me?" I could feel the weight of confusion settling in. There was no way he was at home. I just heard his voice. Had I imagined it? The thought of me losing my grip on reality made my skin crawl. But how could I explain what had just happened? I ended the call quickly, feeling more unsettled than ever. My brother wasn't even in town that night. He lived on the other side of the city, and we hadn't made any plans for him to come over. He would have let me know if he was stopping by. But the voice, I heard it so clearly. I knew it was him. I went back to the living room and sat down on the couch, feeling a cold chill run over me. Was I just imagining things? Had I simply been too tired? But the voice had been so real. It wasn't the kind of thing you'd mistake. I didn't know what to make of it. Later that night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what had happened. Was there an explanation? A logical one? Or was there something else at play? Something I didn't understand? The events with Charlie, and now this voice from the hallway. It left me with more questions than answers. I had already begun questioning the strange connection I had with my father's parrot. Was it possible that animals were more in tune with the unseen? Could Charlie have sensed something that I couldn't? Something out of the ordinary? And now this, was the voice my brother's? Or was it something, or someone else trying to get my attention? I kept thinking about my father. After he passed away, it felt like so many of these strange occurrences had started. Charlie's behavior, the warning, and now this inexplicable voice. Was it possible that my father was trying to reach me somehow? Or was my mind simply playing tricks on me, grieving, searching for meaning where there was none? The house felt different now. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind outside, seemed to carry with it a sense of something watching, waiting. And so, I was left with the same question that had followed me ever since Charlie's warning. What did all of this mean? Could there be something beyond this life that was trying to communicate with me? Or was it all just coincidence? I didn't have the answers, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to these events. Something deeper, something hidden. As the days went by, I couldn't help but feel like I was caught between two worlds. The one I knew, and the one that might be trying to reach me. And if that was true, what would come next? For now, the mystery remained unsolved. I wasn't sure if the events surrounding my father's parrot and the voice I'd heard were signs, or just strange coincidences. But something told me that these unexplained encounters weren't over. Someone was trying to tell me something, and I was determined to figure out what that was. The feeling of being watched, the voices that shouldn't have been there, Something was out of place, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. The question was, how long would I have to wait before the next strange event occurred? I guess time would tell, but for now, I couldn't shake the sense that I was being drawn deeper into something far beyond my understanding.